What is going on, everybody, and welcome back to the channel. So today I'm gonna try something a little bit different. Now, in the past, when I've tried making lore videos such as this, I've always written scripts for them. Now, for those of you who have only heard me for this Elder Scrolls lore channel, I do run another channel on the side for Final Fantasy, and those videos I actually script, which means that I write down my thoughts on Google Docs and I kind of just read them out loud as I go. But for this one, I'm gonna try something a little bit different. I'm going to try reading just off of my thoughts, and let's see how that goes. Without any further ado, we are going to jump into today's lore topic. This one is very interesting because I kind of want to put a spotlight on one of the eras in Skyrim's history that I think is very important, and that is the Merethic era. It's very incredible because we have so many events that happen throughout the first, second, third, and fourth eras of Skyrim, and that's where the games have mostly been inspired by. So for example, we have Skyrim in the fourth era, Oblivion in the third era. Many different eras have been represented, but I think that there's not enough spotlight on the Merethic era. Now, the thing is, there are books in Skyrim that detail events that happened in the Merethic era, and I will be referencing those as we go along. Today's topic is going to be highlighting a very specific event that occurred in Skyrim's past, but I think left a very significant mark as to sort of shaping the layout of Skyrim in terms of its demograph. I am talking about the event known as the Night of Tears. Now, if you've never heard about this event before, this is an event that happened for only one night. The reason why I want to spotlight it is because there are so many things that happen before and after that kind of revolve around this specific event. I'm not going to talk about all the events that happened before and the events after. If anything, I might just skim through them a little bit because I feel like we can make very long videos just on what happens before the Night of Tears and what happens after the Night of Tears, and we can explore all the concepts that happen then. Now, in order to fully understand what happened in the Night of Tears, we have to know a little bit about what happened in the Merethic era. Now, this event occurs around the time where the Atmorans, which are people who are the ancestors of the Nords, had sailed south from Atmora. The Atmorans were never a battle-hardy, warrior-oriented race. They were actually very peaceful. They sought to have peace and harmony and culture with other people that they were around. So the continent of Atmora to the north of Tamriel was never actually known to be like a military one, not like the Nords that we know in today's Skyrim, which are their descendants. Now, of course, this wouldn't last long because a civil war did break down in Atmora, and that's what caused a lot of the Atmorans to emigrate south of their shores to head for Skyrim. And this triggered the wave of emigration of men towards the continent of Tamriel. Now, they had landed on the northern shores of the northern province known as Skyrim, but at the time that's not what it was known as. In fact, they had called the lands Merith, named after the amount of elves that lived there. Now, because they lived in the north, they particularly made first contact with the snow elves. Now, here's the thing. The snow elves and the Atmorans, they actually made good relations with each other, to the point where the snow elves even allowed the race of men to even establish their own settlements in Skyrim, which again isn't common because normally when a alien race enters your homeland, you're gonna have a little bit of skepticism. I wouldn't be surprised if there was some by the snow elves to this new race that has entered their lands. Overall, they welcomed them with open arms and pretty much let them in. Now, if you look around Skyrim, a lot of the Nordic tombs in Skyrim were once ancient Atmoran cities, which means that the Atmorans were allowed to build this many cities prior to them becoming Nordic tombs. One of these cities that we're going to look at is a city called Sarthal, and if that name sounds familiar to you, it is the location of the very first quest that we undertake when we join the College of Winterhold. Okay, well, not the very first quest, but I would say the very first quest that takes place outside of Winterhold itself. And the reason why Sarthal is the city that is the most highlighted with the Night of Tears is because Sarthal is really the city where this event took place. There's a book appropriately named The Night of Tears, and the first paragraph of the text goes like this. Sarthal holds a prominent place in Skyrim history, even if most do not remember it by name. It is, of course, the site of one of the first major Nord settlements, one of the first cities of men in Skyrim, and the earliest known capital of their civilization. It was also the site of terrible bloodshed when the elves attempted to drive the Nords out of Skyrim, to succeed only in incurring their wrath in the form of Ysgramor and his fabled 500 companions, who swept the elves from Skyrim and firmly established it as the home of the Nords. All this is known but little else. What happened on that Night of Tears when Sarthal was razed to the ground? What provoked the elves to such a deliberate, vicious attack? And what prompted such a severe response from the Nords? I could go further into the book because the Night of Tears book does recall the events of the Night of Tears, but it would be cool if you guys could just have it read for it yourself. Saarthal was targeted. That's the first thing that I want you guys to kind of understand about the events of the Night of Tears. It is a night where the elves decided to stage a massive genocide of the race of the Atmorans, but it was only targeted in the city of Saarthal. Now, if you remember what I had said before, when a new race enters your lands, you normally become skeptical of them, even if you welcome them with open arms and establish good relations. If they grow to the point where they pose a threat to your way of life and your culture, you're going to want to retaliate. Even as world history has shown, this has been the case. The thing with this, however, is that this was a targeted attack on only one city, which is why that reasoning of why they would attempt such an attack is very strange. And this kind of goes into one of the theories, but one of the bigger reasons as to why this event might have taken place. If you remember about the quest from under Saarthal, when we get to the very bottom level of this city, we actually find an ancient magical artifact. Now, this magical artifact, we've seen it in action when Ancano draws from its power and makes him invincible until we use the Staff of Magnus on it, which means that this magical artifact, at the very least, is capable of making someone invincible. If it can be capable of doing that, what other powers does it hold? It is very likely that this was the main force of the Snow Elves, particularly, to attack the Atmoran, because they want this power. It is likely that while the race of the Atmorans was trying to fully flesh it out, they had stumbled upon this magical artifact, and the Snow Elves wanted to take control of it. The fact that it's still sitting in Saarthal, I'm guessing where it probably was at the event that it happened, the Snow Elves were never able to extract it and take it out of Saarthal to keep for themselves, or they were able to take it but perhaps not keep control of it by the time that Ysgramor and his men came back to Skyrim and defeated them in battle. When we explore Saarthal, we don't see any signs of Falmer, not even Falmer bodies. So that could likely mean that when Ysgramor and his companions came back, they drove back all of the Snow Elves from Saarthal and reconquered it. Now, when the Night of Tears happened, everyone in the city died. Everyone except for 3. Well, 4, but the 4th one will be mentioned in the video when we talk about what happened after the Night of Tears. You have Ysgramor, you have Ingol, and you have Ilgar. Ysgramor and his 2 sons later went back to Atmora to tell stories about what had happened to them in that night in order to raise an army. The interesting thing is, everyone in Skyrim knows Ysgramor to be this legendary hero of Skyrim who was so strong that he was able to drive out the entire Snow Elf race just with 500 companions. In reality, when we look at as he lived in the Merethic era, he was actually a very peaceful man. The fact that he was one of the people to leave Atmora because of a civil war means he didn't want to take part in it. It means he was one of the people that wanted to leave because he wanted peace. He was a very peaceful man. It wasn't until the events of the Night of Tears that he was forced to become a battle-hardened warrior because of what he had witnessed. If you can just imagine yourself being in the middle of a massacre where your race is being the one that's targeted and you have to somehow escape the attacks from all the Snow Elves, it can be pretty traumatizing, let alone if you have sons with you. So I'm guessing that's probably how Ysgramor felt, and that's how he was able to raise an army to return. Pretty much from there, the rest is history. The Snow Elves eventually devolved into the Falmer, which is another topic that we can get to on a separate lore video. Skyrim's current inhabitants, which are the Nords, very much revere Ysgramor, even to the point where there's even a faction whose name is a forebearer of Ysgramor's ancient company, known as the Companions. So if you guys want any of those videos to be done, please be sure to leave a like on this video, and of course subscribe to the channel if you guys want to check out any more Elder Scrolls lore content, and of course comment on any specific topics that you guys want to check out in the comment section below. Other than that, this has been Enzo, and I will see you guys all in the next video.